All right, let us get started. So as we always do, we want to maximize our potential. So giving thanks and appreciation is a great way to start our sessions as we normally do. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulangete Grim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sunda Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So as we always say, I was born without knowledge, and my spiritual teacher has opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my sincere respects unto them. The second is I offer my sincere respects to all of my teachers. Their grace turns the dumb into eloquent speakers and enables the lame to cross mountains. And finally, I offer my sincere respects to all of you, seekers of the divine, who can fulfill the desires of everyone and are full of compassion for all living beings. So again, thank you so much for being with us, taking this opportunity to join us during the chanting part and the offering of respects. This really makes a huge difference for the entire session and really helps us to not only fortify our mind, but also to protect us and to gives us the ability to do that internal work that we're looking to do. So as we always say, our culture that we wanted to bring to the group always is our full presence, the respect for everyone that has joined, and the determination to do the work that is coming at us. And I always like to remind ourselves that the things we should always try to remember are the good others have done for us, to keep us in the space of being thankful. We should always try to remember the not so good we have done for them, to keep us in the space of always wanting to grow and be better. And the two things we should always try to let go of as best possible are the bad others may have done for us, or at least the feelings attached to it, maybe not necessarily the act itself, and the good we have maybe done for others, so we don't get comfortable resting on our laurels. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This is always one of the highlights of my week. And I just wanted to hear from everyone, just to take any reflections from last week. I know last week we were, it really has to do with page 57, where we were starting off. A leader must know friend and foe alike. And so we were really trying to dig into this piece of trying to study our competition and our potential enemies. And for me, if people remember from Yoga and the Dark Night of the Soul, one of these, the main foundational principles of that book is that we're in fact not we're not this external covering, not this body, we're in fact spirit. And one of the reasons why I'm mentioning this is because this exercise we did on trying to appreciate our enemies and our competition, it helped me move off that plane, because again, it was trying to see something good in people, maybe that's in something that's hard for me usually, and that what that did was it in fact helped me apply this principle of, we're in fact all spirit of a divine nature. So I just wanted to see and take any reflections from anyone from potentially last week, because again, it is very much in line with this first section that we were reading. A king should be alert. He must study his foes and friends incessantly. That was from A Leader Must Know Friend and Foe Alike. So anyone wanted to share anything from that came up or from last week, please? Please, Stacy.
I love that image that creates, I think about how we are all spirit and pure, and in the pure sense, it would be so easy to love one another, right? Mm-hmm. But what happens is there's this cloak kind of that covers over, I mean, all the experiences that we have and the burdens and the ways that we're maybe rejected or feel unloved or unvalued. And those are the things that snuff out our light, you know, that those are the things that make it very hard to sometimes connect with people. And I think that's just a really good image. Like I could see like a candle, you know, and then a veil covering it. And so I think it's a good way to maybe to create that openness to know our foes.
Yeah. And the visual that I was getting when you were just sharing that was this veil that covers it, in fact, prevents from the light to shine to its full extent, right?
Absolutely.
And we in fact limit ourselves. So this was, for me, the reason why that exercise was so kind of shattering, was because it really helps us break through our own limitations and learn from those. Again, it's that concept of appreciating everybody we run into, even the people that are rubbing us, right?
Yes.
So thank you. Gabrielle, please.
What I felt when I think about it, it's very, very easy to understand it mentally. It makes total sense to understand it. But the emotional part, it's much harder to, I think it's not that easy that the mental part has to convince the emotional part in myself. And it's a different part, because the mental part, I think on the mental level, it makes total sense and it's quite easy to understand. But on the emotional level, it's not that easy, that the mental level has to convince the emotional level that it's for the own development, and by the own development it also helps the other people as well. But to do the step, it always feels like to go in unknown territory. We always feel comfortable when we are in known territory. And the past of humanity shows us that when we feel hurt, that we close the shutter, we close our heart. Because I know that we are talking about leadership, and I know it's basically mostly we are talking about the sense of to have the relationship of a company. But at the same time, our children need leader in the family, which is for me even more important, because the children are the next generation. And if they step in the same patterns like the parents, that when they become hurt, that they shut down, they do the same thing. So for me, it's always important to try my best to, and of course meditation helps a lot, but to bring what I gained mentally in my emotionally state, because that not always fits.
Yeah, no, thank you, Gabrielle. It was just related to what Avantika and Avni were sharing last week about trying to lean into those situations where we're feeling some resistance or challenges, usually where our area of growth is. And it requires a great deal of patience and sometimes time to be able to do that, at least from what I've seen, to work through, as you were saying, the emotions.
You know, I thank you a lot that you reminded me to what Avantika sent it in the group, because I am a person who likes really to experience. When I learn something, I it's not enough to learn it theoretically. So it only makes sense if we are practicing it. And I thought it's really interesting to what she sent in for this. I don't know all in the group or listen to what she mentioned, this doctor who was not in touch with this imprisoned people who did so-called bad things, and he sent them what you just said, compassion, or let's say a sense of what I think what's very, very, very interesting, to do something, what to think about what is the part in me connecting to that. I'm just very, very grateful what Avantika did, because I think it's a very interesting field, very uncommon and very new field. What she shared, how to try to deal with it emotionally, even if it's different when you are not connected to the person. It's easier to send compassion and love when you're not connected. As more as you're connected, as we all know, as closer you work together in the firm, or as closer you're in the family, as more you're emotionally involved. And yeah, okay. I just want to mention, I think it's far more easy to understand it mentally, to put it in emotionally practice. And maybe somebody has suggestion about how to do this. And I think Avantika that she brought this in the group to try a new way, a new realm to work on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
I just wanted to introduce Hiba and Avni. I think Avni was here, but I think maybe she dropped off. Hiba, how are you? Good to see you.
Hello, I'm good. Sorry for being late. I was in the previous meeting.
It's okay. I wanted us to flip. Oh, here comes Avni. I wanted us to flip to page 58, which is considering one's people before oneself. Hey, Avni, we were just, I thought you were here. I was saying hi, and then I think you had to jump off, but it's good to see you. Does someone want to read considering oneself before one's people before oneself? Just that section. Paul, go ahead.
You're next, Stacy.
Oh.
Hey, if no one's going to say anything, I'm going to read.
Considering one's people before oneself. A king's duty is to his people. He should take care of them with no thoughts of pleasing himself. He should subordinate his own wishes and desires to those of the people. A leader's first duty is to his people. Then only should he seek his own comforts, appetites, aspirations, and pleasures. Good leadership means thinking first of the welfare of others before thinking of oneself.
Thank you. Stacy, did you want to read the next section?
Why not? Parental spirit. This is a good one. He should guard them as a mother guards a child. A leader should know his or her constituents as much or better than a mother knows her children. An effective leader should know his dependents as well as a mother knows her child, and he should care for them in the same parental spirit. This is the highest standard of leadership and is most pleasing to God himself. The principle of protection is significant. The Manu Samhita states, a king does not protect his citizens. A king who does not protect his citizens is a dead king. Protection is a serious rule of law.
Thank you. Any reflections on these two sections? I remember this when I read this for the first time about guarding one's constituents like a mother guards a child. It was quite 12 years ago. It was quite a kind of a profound concept to me. And for me, this brings up the kind of the principle that often is overlooked in leadership is people over projects. because if we take care of the people involved in a project that we're leading, or anything really, that things naturally unfold from the care that we extend to the people that we oversee. I know that's not always a practical point, but I've just seen in my own life how powerful and effective it is with anything that we want to progress in life. Yeah, this idea, if you just, even give it 5 minutes of a thought, or even attempt to apply it to whatever you're doing, this idea of people over projects really it's incredibly powerful. And for me, it's really the only kind of sustainable way that I've been able to see leadership be effective over a long period of time. Does anyone have any other thoughts on these two sections? Yes, Stacy.
So I, in reading the Bible, something that struck me, that, I mean, it's all so congruent, right? It's all just so congruent when you get to the base truth. And there's a passage that I was reading about how, they were asking Jesus, well, about the 10 Commandments and all the rules, that are in the Old Testament. And he said that it's about love, right? It's about loving one another. That's like the only thing that is needed, right? And if you think about that, that's also what this is saying here, because you think of the love of that a parent has for a child, and you think about how, all those rules, all those laws, you don't need any of them if you just approach everybody and everything in a state of pure love, right? It's that simple. And although not as easy to do, right, with human nature, but still, that's the core simplicity truth.
Mm-hmm.
And you really just don't need anything else.
Yeah. No, it's such it's simple yet profound, right? But application, as the saying goes, it's simple but not easy in terms of applying. Hiba, we're in the section, it's going to be in section 1, but it's considering one's people before oneself and parental spirit. I'm not sure which page it is in the PDF, if anyone wanted to share.
Can you please repeat, because I'm a bit lost.
Parental spirit. Does anyone else looking at the PDF? I should have these pages also marked out.
Because still my book didn't arrive. I ordered it and it took so much time. I don't understand why. The section is...
It's still the first section, but the section is called parental spirit.
Yes, I'm okay. Because I saw it. Thank you.
No problem. So anyone have any thoughts on what prevents us, or what challenges us in this area of trying to kind of put the constituents of the people we lead, or the people we try to lead, why it's hard to in fact apply this, and maybe something that we could take away?
Ego.
Go ahead.
Ego.
Yeah, I was just thinking that we're, the inherent, if we come really sometimes to grips with sometimes our own, we all have our needs, but just our own selfishness. I know for myself, it's something that I have to remind myself on a daily basis of what actively that I've done for somebody else, that did involve maybe potentially some gain for me. And, over time, I hope it becomes a habit, but again, it still takes conscious thought and effort. And so, does anyone else have any reflections on this? Because I'm sure it's come up with everybody. No? Okay. So the next section, independence. I'll just go ahead and read it. The king's need is to be careful not to place implicit confidence in anyone. He should keep his innermost thoughts concealed from his nearest and dearest. Today's friends may be tomorrow's enemy or spy. Best to be cautious. We see this principle in parts of Nigeria where the traditional system of monarchy is still in effect. I'm a high chief in Nigeria, and I use that position to share higher consciousness to politicians, CEOs, kings, and chiefs. In some cases, these traditional leaders have ancient ancestral lineages that extend back for many generations. Such kings do not eat in public, and they will only eat if the food has been cooked by a specific cook, and only after the cook has tasted the food first to see if it has been poisoned. The next section, the fear of the faceless. I'll just read that. A king should fear his kinsmen as he would fear death, but he shouldn't reveal his fear to them. In Nigeria and other countries as well, the successor to the throne is not allowed to even live in the same province as the king. This is because he may try to kill the king to take his post. Bhishmadev's instructions are taken from India's ancient monarchical wisdom. As we go deeper into the ancient culture, we find that those cultures are close to the Vedic culture. The Vedic civilization was once spread throughout the world, and aside from kingly wisdom, it provided people with an opportunity to learn from how to come closer to God. The remnants of Vedic culture remain centered in India, but anyone can tap into the reservoir of knowledge for the betterment of mankind. This section on recognizing one's weaknesses, did anyone want to read that?
I can read that, Ricken.
Please.
Recognizing one's own weaknesses. A king needs to know when to seek protection in his court. When his position is weak, he should be ready to make peace with a foe who is stronger. A king must also be able to recognize his own weakness. Sometimes leaders become so attached to power that they fail to discharge their duties properly, and thus not protect the people. Or instead of resigning after they become ineffective, they will do everything to remain in their positions. Such a leader may even realize the impropriety of his actions, but be so overwhelmed by his desire for profit, adoration, and distinction that he cannot control himself. A leader must learn to identify nescience, is that the word?
Nescience, yeah.
Nescience, while cultivating transcendence. If he's sincere, he will rise beyond his lesser nature and become the leader he was meant to be.
Thank you. The next section, controlling one's desires.
I give a try.
Please, Enver, yes, read.
Controlling one's desires. Covetousness, I don't know how to spell it, is the root of all sins. It destroys all merit and goodness. Bhishma spoke of self-restraint as a king's highest duty. Now he explains that covetous lust is dangerous. History reveals how powerful leaders have lost huge kingdoms and committed many atrocities due to greed. Maya, illusion personified, attacks us at our weakest points. We should always remind ourselves that whenever we fail to maintain our integrity and sense control, that is when we will be unable to feel concern for others. Lust can cause us to betray our own families, what to speak of our constituents or organizations. A true leader must endeavor with full conviction to overcome lust in all its forms.
Thank you. Any reflections from these last 4 sections?
Ricken?
Yes,
For
please.
me, the session I actually read feels so out of existence in the world we are and right now. But it's kind of a norm for political leaders. I mean, the concept of re-election, and there being a significant percentage of people that don't want you in, is telling us something. But more so, we're leaders, and for example, Zambia, where we are in right now, we had the former president win the last 5 elections, and there was so much corruption that came into existence. And then the most recent election that happened while we were here, everybody was clear that the existing president would continue. The president then would again win. There was no point in anybody else standing. And it took this really humble, audacious guy to stand against that. And miraculously, we got a new president who's complete. In my like everyday lived experiences, corruption just shifted significantly, and the kwacha value's gone up. But it's that sentence there, which is, how do you rise beyond your lesser nature and become the leader you're meant to be? I think is just not taught. And I don't know, I know nothing about politics or even the subject. I know there's a topic or a curriculum in university, but I don't think any of that goes towards people and candidates who end up putting their names forward for senior leadership roles in countries or perhaps even corporates. And unless we're grounded by a shared vision and shared values, it becomes such an individual achievement.
Yeah, I was just, to your point, I was just thinking that every leader has quote unquote an advisor, but who are these advisors, and are they just kind of yes people to the people in charge? I think you could create a whole training system for being an advisor, but it's really about one. I think being an advisor is not just what you say, but also how you live your life, because that really is always the strongest example of giving advice, is our own actions. But yeah, I just wanted to see, I guess, just in this section, in terms of applying it to ourselves, how often do people have a system by which they have a check and balance system in their own life of assessing their own weaknesses? Because this is really, to me, such a, if we can really, because to me, the weaknesses are usually generally going to be, they're often our blind spots. And so really, to me, what this section is about is how to work through our blind spots. Does anyone have any, I guess, reflections for themselves or anything they want to share about how they potentially may work through their own limitations or weaknesses?
Rikin, could I share?
Please, yeah.
We've created in our business and education platform these 14 values. And so every Saturday morning, we have training calls with our coaches from around the world. And we literally, the call is an hour, but we always kick off by reviewing these 14 values of how do you just get to be a more, a higher consciousness human being, but they're applicable to all aspects of life. And it's amazing because everybody will have people read them and then really self-evaluate what values are in place. So, for example, inspiration from Martin Luther King, being an extremist for love, or being unconditional, or being resilient, being compassionate and forgiving. And it really it's such a great weekly stock take, because at times and non-judgment is a big part, when judgment's there, right? The first place we always look at ourselves is like, what's stopping us from actually being able to make a difference to another? And typically it's one or more of the values that go out of existence. And so that's one way in which this whole context around one's own weakness or kind of energy block or regression gets to get checked on a weekly basis, because life's always happening. And
yeah.
How do we, in the face of whatever's happening, get to still general state is.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things that, in that exercise that you do, the repetition is constantly needed, because every week, as you were saying, life happens, and some of our weaknesses maybe we're exposed again. Even if we're making kind of that 1% gain, especially with our weaknesses, I think is very important. Ed, we're just discussing the section on recognizing one's own weakness. And I was just, Ambika was just starting off with sharing how she feels like this is an overlooked principle amongst leaders today in society. And then I was just trying to bring it back to ourselves in terms of having like a checks and balance system in our own lives. And so she was just sharing what she does in her organization of trying to at least regularly review values, if I'm hearing correctly, as a way to remind ourselves of the principles they're trying to work on and improve upon week to week.
Okay, I get it. Let me just put this on. I want to say welcome to all. Good to see all of you. I'll move this a little bit. How do we do this? Try and make it look good. So, thank you. I was listening to the last part of that, and Ambika, I really found that inspiring. And you talked about, Martin Luther King, was it extremists of love or something like that, and unconditional love and acceptance. I thought was really, really powerful. I was actually just on a call, and I'm not going to interrupt because I want to just interject this very briefly. I was on a call recently. We were talking about this with many leaders about setting the right type of diverse and inclusive environment, and how it's really, really important that we as leaders proactively create the culture that we want. Rickon and I, we often talk about this preemptive leadership. Some leaders, they wait till an issue goes bad and then they have to fix it. But what we're trying to do more and more is instill the culture that we are looking for that allows everyone to thrive. So we'll definitely touch upon that again. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and Ambika, one of the things that I also was appreciating from the exercise that you do is I think people need a visual or an example. So having, let's say, a specific personality to kind of imbibe what you're moving towards, I think is really important. Otherwise, as we were saying, it's nice to have that visual. And I was just thinking that even if we chose potentially even like a different personality from time to time to see who imbibes certain qualities, or particularly who focused on specific qualities, might be a way to kind of broaden our horizons as well. But yeah, choosing that person, I think, again, having that visual connection to the direction we want to go in, really powerful. So thanks for that. Anybody else have any? So Ed, what we did was we read the sections from considering one's people before oneself, all the way over to controlling one's desires.
Okay, sounds good.
And so and I was just thinking that controlling one's desires, again, that first principle of leadership that the kings first conquer is over their own senses and desires. That, again, it's repeated here that it's the highest duty of a king. And so just going back to that idea of just working on ourselves can never be overstated.
Absolutely, such a crucial point. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that.
So feel free to dive in, Ed.
Okay, excellent. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I've got a few slides and activities. It's always good to see all of you, as always, and really interested in seeing how the discussions have been going. Especially, I want to begin by touching on something that we asked you to do as an exercise last week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and then we will go forward from there. So here we are. So you probably remember this. We talked about this idea of really understanding allies, contacts. So in the session that we did last week, we asked you to engage in an activity. And the activity was really looking at this idea of potential allies. And then we did this specific exercise. So we asked you to think about a goal that could help you or your team. Who can help you with your goal? How close are they to you? So again, this idea of knowing friends and foes, allies, etc. Before this exercise last week, we also asked you to think about competitors and enemies. And we always framed this idea that there are no accidents. Everyone that we interact with, whether we are conscious of it or not, according to the Bhakti Yoga text, the Mahabharata and so on, the Bhagavad Gita, There's a reason. And I'll be honest with you, this for me has been such a powerful revelation in my life. Such a powerful revelation, because what it means is that every single day, every single interaction, every single person in my life has been put there for a reason. In other words, the idea from the Bhakti Yoga text is that life is pregnant with meaning. And there's actually, it's very interesting. The Vedic literature says that there's different ways to learn. See, one of the most expedient ways of learning is by hearing. So we can just understand something, good advice, and just catch it like that. But usually we learn using a whole range of different methods. So we'll capture great wisdom by hearing. That's one way. Sometimes we learn by seeing, okay? So we may see something that's done well and we pick that up. We may see something that's done badly, and then because we saw it was done badly, we know what to avoid, okay? Now bear in mind that there's a subtle pattern. Hearing is the most subtle way of learning. Seeing is slightly less subtle. And then the most gross way to learn is that we have to experience something directly ourselves, okay? So because we know that there are different ways of learning, we also know that according to those different ways of learning, everything in the environment has a meaning. If I can use my more subtle intelligence, I can ask myself certain questions. Why do I have these people turning up in my life? I want to share with you something that was really interesting. I was speaking to my wife about this. I saw that there are certain people in a certain person's life, and those people, it kept coming up again and again. They were dealing with people who did not have a healthy sense of strength, of character. And therefore, because they didn't have a healthy sense of strength of character, you had some people who were pushy and aggressive. That was one imbalance. You had other people who would tend to repress their anger. And then you'd see after a while, they've repressed their anger for so long, then they just explode. And then suddenly it's like, whoa, where did that come from? You know, I'm dealing with one person who I'm giving some guidance to. Wonderful person in so many ways. But an issue has come up in that person's close dealings. And why has it come up? It came up because if you met this person, you would think this person's really soft, really quiet. But what the person has done is that they've repressed their anger. What does that mean? Repressed anger is where someone feels that their boundaries are being transgressed, but they don't have the assertiveness to say something or the willingness to remove themselves from that situation. So then what happens instead is it doesn't go away. They push the anger down, they get more and more angry, and then it builds up to a certain extent that they then say or do something that they later regret, okay? Now, why does this happen? One of the reasons why this happens is because as leaders, as individuals, we do not always take the time to really understand ourselves and understand the people that we're dealing with. I was giving some marriage counseling guidance to one of my mentees, sorry. And, you know, so my mentee is in a relationship with one of my mentees, I have a few, but one of my mentees is in a relationship with someone. And he was just asking me, so, you know, what do you do in your marriage and so on and so forth. And I said to him something which applies to leaders as well. I said that one of the most important things that you should do as a husband is you have to make sure that you are approachable, right? And I said that if you're approachable, the way that you do this practically, so the principle is that you're approachable. The practical application is, I said to him, regularly check in with your partner, you know? So when you see her, just ask her, how are you doing? How's your day? How are you feeling? And then I explained to him the science behind it. I said that if your partner has something that she's concerned about or something she's upset about or something that she's angry about, if you regularly give her the space, if you regularly give her the floor to express her feelings, I explained to him, it will protect your relationship. And I explained to him why, because I said to him, what happens otherwise, and unfortunately in the UK right now, we've seen various relationships, like, you know, Ricken and I know someone, and after I think maybe 14 years, they're getting divorced and, you know, there's kids and so on. And I was explaining that what happens is, if you keep opening the floor for honest and open expression, then you never get to the critical point in your marriage where bitterness and resentment has built up. And because the person didn't feel that they could express it, they become so frustrated and angry that they want to leave. You see? So I was explaining that instead what you do is in your, so how are you feeling? How's your day? And you're actually creating an invitation. You're opening the floor for your partner to say what she really thinks. And it's just like a capacity, right? So we have different kinds of capacity: physical capacity, mental capacity, emotional capacity, spiritual capacity. So emotional capacity is that what I'm feeling, I'm able to express. And because I'm able to express it, it's just like you have a washing machine. If you're able to get the clothes out of the washing machine, then it's completely empty. Now you can pull another load in. But if you keep pushing more and more clothes into the washing machine, it's not going to work. You can't even close the door. So it's these subtle things that make a big difference, ladies and gentlemen. Honestly, you'd be so surprised. It's often the subtle things that make a big difference. And in the same parallel, this applies to leadership. Right now, many people are struggling to keep talented individuals, and it's often because as leaders, we're not opening the floor. How are you feeling about your job? How are you feeling about the work that you're doing, right? What's working for you? How can I support you? In the business world right now, and we're doing this also, they talk about stay interviews, okay? So, normally you're looking for someone to fill a role and then you're going to interview them. They're now launching in many companies what they call stay interviews. A stay interview is that you're interviewing someone who's already working for you to make sure that you understand what's working, what's not working, what do they need, right? We know from the research that it takes 6 times as many resources to train a new person than it does to maintain someone who's in your company right now. This is hardcore practical stuff. So Ricken and I, we know many people in the community in London, and some of them are a bit entrepreneurial. So some of them, they'll have certain projects and things like that. I was giving a presentation in Milton Keynes last weekend. And, it was interesting. I was being driven to this presentation. And as I was on the journey with this, with some friends of mine who were driving, we got into a conversation about one company, so that one of them had been working for. And the lady said to me, she said that this company, they have such a high turnover. They keep bringing people in and people keep leaving. And I realized that it links to the topic we're going to discuss today. I know you've been discussing up to page 61, and there's some different quotes by Bhishma Dev to Yudhisthira. Now, one of the quotes between Bhishma Dev and Yudhisthira is about how the king, I'll show you the quote in a moment, but he talks about how the king should know, the king should know his constituents like a mother knows her children, and he should deal with them accordingly. Okay, so I'm going to actually show you that particular quote in a moment. But the key idea behind it is if I know the people I'm dealing with, then I can actually arrange the working environment so that the talented people in my team not only come to work, not only stay at work, meaning that they stay with the company, but they thrive in the organization. So we talk about different types of capital. There's social capital. When you have someone working in your company, they've already built a great relationship with the rest of the team. That's called social capital. When there's social capital between team members, they know each other, they get each other, they like working with each other, they trust each other, they know the strengths and weaknesses, they can complement each other. That's huge social capital, okay? Then you've got intellectual capital. So each member of your team, they've got skills. They've got certain insights that they have. Now, there's also network capital. Network capital means that outside of the team, each member of your team, they have other people that they know in their wider network, right? So if they need something, okay, I'm going to call a friend who can give me some information on graphic design for the project that we're doing. Or I've got another friend who can give, who knows someone who's good at social media, so we can leverage them for the social media for the company. And all companies love this. Let's be very honest. Companies love this, right? They love the fact that if you need someone, you don't want to just go on the internet and get a complete stranger, because you've no idea how good they are. What you're looking for is recommendation. What's a recommendation? Recommendation is someone who's close to you, who's putting their reputation on the line to recommend someone else. Because if I recommend someone to you and they're terrible, it makes me look bad. So when you ask for recommendations, you've already greatly increased the likelihood that whoever you're getting into the company is good. Because if a person isn't good, no one wants to recommend them. No one wants to be associated with someone who comes in, has bad character, is incompetent, is lazy, etc., etc. So this is called network capital. So everyone in your team, if there's a good relationship, oh, we need someone for graphic design. Do you know anyone in your network who can help with the graphic design for the company? Right, I know someone. He's really good or she's really good. I will call them, okay? And then I'll tell them, yeah, my company's looking for something. Maybe we can speak about it. Could you come in? Could you give a presentation on what you can deliver, etc., etc. So there's many different sunk costs. There's many different investments that you have made in your team members. And if they stay, things, they don't just grow, they multiply, actually. So we want to be able to have the right environment where our teams are happy to be at their best. And that's why it requires that self-knowledge. So what we're going to do is a few exercises in this regards. And Ronnie, thank you for joining. I know you cannot be here for a short time, but it's great to see you. Whatever time you have with us is truly valued. So thank you for coming on. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow one of Bishop's instructions, and we're going to look at it from two angles. One angle is about you. Another angle is about your team. Okay, so let me just go back to sharing this particular slide. Let's go from, okay, I'll move this around because I want to do a few exercises with you today if we have time. So let's just go here and here. Okay, so let's share the screen and we'll go from there. So here we are. Yes, so Bishendev is making this particular point in the section that you had actually read. Okay, full screen. So when he's speaking about the king knowing his constituents, he also says he should guard them as a mother guards a child. A leader should know his or her constituents as much or better than a mother knows her children. The exercise we're going to ask you to do is as follows. This exercise is called Replace Yourself, and it will have two functions. One is it's going to help you to also build further self-knowledge, and it's also going to help you to build knowledge of your team in a certain way. So this is your scenario. Consider that you're going to be away on sabbatical for, let's say, 6 months, okay? And you're going to need a replacement. So the first thing I want you to do, write this down. Think of how you are at your best in leadership and then list those qualities. So we're going to look for a replacement for Ambika, Paul, Enver, etc. So to find that replacement, we're going to start by really understanding what's the gap that we're missing. If Ambika's not in the office, if Paul's not in the office, if Enver, whoever it is not in the office, if Heba, Ronnie, Avni, Gabrielle, if they're not in the office, what's missing? So the first thing is list those qualities of you at your best, because that's what's going to step out of the organization when you are away for those 6 months, okay? So I'm going to start there, and you can list 10 qualities. So you at your best in leadership, what are the 10 qualities that you display when you are at your best as a leader? Okay, as we said again, it's self-awareness and also team awareness. Hold on, yeah. I'm gonna give you some time to do that, and then I'm gonna give you some further direction. You at your best, and again, don't be shy. It's really important that the more these exercises are done with complete honesty, the more benefit we each get from those activities. When you're at your best, what are the qualities that you actually display? At least 10 qualities that you honestly know, when I'm at my best in leadership, this is how I am. Thoughtful, considerate, whatever it is. And then you're gonna, once you've done those 10, we're gonna look at number 3 and number 4. So then you can take, and you have a choice. If you've got a small team, you may want to consider all of your members of your team. If you've got a big team, or if there's one or two people that you're looking to focus on, that's fine. So you could take 1 or 2 members of your team or more. And again, when they're at their best, again, thinking about what Bishwadev says, you should know the constituents. When they are at their best, list those qualities. Okay, so again, you can choose 1 or 2 people, someone that you want to get more engaged or motivated, whatever it is. When they're at their best, list those qualities. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cue from the room. Once you've done this activity, you can just put a thumbs up, hands up, something that lets me know, okay, Ed, we're done. We've done this activity, then we're going to take it a step on. Again, when you've done that exercise, when you've completed, use an emoticon, hands up, whatever it is, just to indicate to me, okay, Ed, we're done. Okay, so you're thinking about when you're at your best, the 10 qualities that you display when you're at your best as a leader, then team members, whether 1 or 2 or the entire team, however you want to do it, when they're at their best, what do we tend to see? What are some of the qualities that they exhibit when they're at their best in the work environment or in the team environment? So, okay, Ambika, you ready? Okay, anyone else done? Okay, Paul, I can see you're ready. Enver? Okay, Gabrielle? Okay, Enver, that's fine. Avni? Heba, how are we doing? Rikin? Okay, Gabrielle's ready. Heba, do you need more time or are you okay?
It's fine, it's fine.
Okay, it's fine. Avni? Okay, so what we want to do is we want to start to get you to explore this. Okay, so those qualities that you have when you're at your best, we're going to do some cross-learning. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to explain one of those qualities that you demonstrate when you're at your best as a leader. And we're going to also ask you to share how you demonstrate that quality in the workplace. For example, let's say that one of the qualities that someone has when they're at their best as a leader is that they're compassionate. Okay, so that's the quality. Then how do they display that? I display that compassion by beginning the meetings by asking people how they're doing, how has their week been, what's happening. Okay, so it's the quality. Then I explain how I practically display it, and then the benefit, right? So quality, expression, impact. QEI. I repeat that. Quality. So this is a quality I display when I'm at my best. I'm compassionate. Expression. I show compassion by asking team members and being really interested. How are you? I listen, I'm present, etc. Impact. Because of that, I've noticed that my team's engagement has gone up. They go above and beyond. They're even prepared to come in and work on weekends because we've got such a good relationship. Okay, so it's all practical. It's the quality that you display, it's how you display it, and it's the impact that that display has. This is a very, very profound learning activity, because as you've got these 10 things, when you share, you're going to also literally be giving or upskilling each other. You're going to be sharing that how a certain leadership quality can make a difference in the workplace. You're sharing what the quality is. You're going to share how that quality can be shown in the work environment and the positive, productive outcomes that happen when we have that. Okay, so 10 qualities. We're going to put you into pairs. I'm going to ask Rikin if you can create pairs. And this is really important now. When you're hearing from your peers, you may hear certain qualities that you may have or not have so much, that you may display or not display so much. You may also hear a quality that someone else is sharing that you also wrote down. But you may also get some new ways in which you can demonstrate it. Okay. Okay, thank you. We also got your point, Avni. No problem at all. So think about that. For example, let's say that I know I express compassion by asking people how they're doing. Someone else also may express compassion, but they express it by being very flexible. I know you've got young children. You don't have to come into the office at 10 o'clock, at 9 o'clock. You can come, we can tailor your work hours. You can start a bit later on in the day, right? One of the discussions we've been having with leaders across many different countries is recognizing impact over effort, right? So sometimes you may have someone, they're really working hard, but for whatever reason, the impact isn't so strong, and someone else who's much more efficient and they're not doing so much, but the impact is actually much more, right? And so we were talking about how can we incentivize the outcomes, right? Because that's part of an initiative to increase efficiency, right? How do we do things so we get much more output even from less input? In other words, how do we work smarter as opposed to harder? Okay, and these can be some of the ideas that we're tuning into here. So we'll have you in pairs. We won't put Avni. We won't put Avni into a breakout room. Okay, but let's see, 2, 4. Okay, and maybe we'll have a group of 3 then in that case, Rikin.
Yep, I have it.
Okay, so we're going to give you 10 minutes. And when you hear from your peers, take some of those, anything that you hear that you think, okay, that's something I don't do. It's a quality I don't express, or I didn't realize that this is another way in which I could express that quality. That's absolutely fine. But whatever you're learning from your peers that you can add to your toolbox as a leader, we want you to add. Okay. Okay, so
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Gabriela.
so thank you to all of you. It sounds I could see everyone was smiling, so it sounds like yes. I can tell you can tell when the people have had some interesting conversations. So QEI, qualities, expression of those qualities, and the impact of that expression. What were some of the things that you were talking about? Who would like to begin?
I think Paul will summarize perfectly.
Yeah, thank you for volunteering me. The quality that I brought up was sort of a hybrid of a few qualities blended in together.
Mhm.
And they were revolving around looking for opportunities to help people, asking how they're doing, and then looking for solutions to make it better. So empathetic, problem solving, I guess, or solution finding.
Okay. And the impact of that, please.
So the impact of that actually varies based on the types of people that I'm dealing with. So typically, when I'm dealing with other leaders, the impact is very, very, very good. When I am dealing with non-leaders, I have growth opportunities.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we all do. Let's be very honest, right? We all have growth opportunities. This this whole suite of programs is to bring that conscious awareness to our leadership and see where are there opportunities for me to be much more effective. And also, what am I doing well? Where can I give myself a pat on the back that, yeah, actually, I do this and I do this well. So there's also something about motivation by seeing that I am making some real positive contribution in my team. So thank you for that. I'd love to hear from other people. Anyone else? So empathetic problem solving. What else? We know you have so many. We asked you to write down 10 qualities. Ambika.
So Hiba and I had a great conversation. Empathy absolutely was there. And what I had was ownership. So when you can take full ownership, then the expression and the way that looks is when we train coaches and coaches are with participants who come into our programs, if ever there's some upset there with a participant, they're just a culture creator, which is we step in and take ownership of whatever the breakdown was, irrespective of what the coach said, didn't say, because ultimately we are training the coaches. And the impact of that is the team actually mirror that, where the coaches also take extreme ownership and step into taking extreme ownership around whatever the breakdown is. And it's very much, I'm at the source of however participants people show up, which is really amazing.
That's really powerful. See, again, just look at the quality that you guys are describing and look at all the practical ways in which you demonstrate. There's always a lot to learn. What we find, I think in the last year, I've had various interactions with certain companies or services, and you can tell that the people who are working for that company, they have absolutely no engagement in the company, meaning that they do it, they do the job, but they do as minimum as they can. And if there's something that comes up, like I'm sure we've all experienced it, you call up customer services and the person on the receiving end of that line, they don't want to be helpful. They don't really care about the product or the service. They just say the minimum that they need to say. And they're even upset that you're speaking to them on the phone about something that's gone wrong. So to Ambika's point, it's really powerful. You talked about the leader demonstrating that sense of ownership and responsibility. You talked about the leader stepping in when something has gone wrong. And I love the point you made. The impact is that the whole team do that. And that's really powerful. That when something goes wrong, rather than let me just stay away and point the finger, I'm going to roll my sleeves up, get involved and fix it. That's worth a lot of money, actually. If we can drive that kind of culture, proactive ownership and responsibility is brilliant. Thank you. I'd like to hear more. QEI, quality, expression of that quality, and the impact. Who else? Yes, Enver. Enver, you don't even need to raise your hands. Just please feel free to tell me. We're all family here.
Thank you. Listen and appreciation was on my list, and I observed with my team, if I appreciate what they have done up to now or what they are doing, then it opens another depth of communication, another level of communication. So, and it is this is the, I think, impact of this.
I'd like to know, you said it opens up another level of communication. What's that new level? of communication?
Then if you are technician, there are very hard conversations and communication. So it becomes friendly, professional, and it drives into a solution, constructive solutions. So they are appropriately on the table, so you can go on with the solution discussions.
Okay,
Having
fantastic. So if I have that approach, people will be much more friendly to me, and also there'll be much more of a solution orientation and outcomes.
Yes.
Okay, we'll fix the
Mm.
issues. Thank you for that input. And that
I think it is also dividing the matter from the emotions.
Tell me more. That's interesting.
Because mostly if they are presenting their solutions, they think this is the best solution. And if you are criticizing directly, we are feeling ourselves offended and some kind under examination. So to take this out, this offensive manner helps more to get in a normal conversation, let's say.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So through listening and also through appreciation, better problem solving, and also more friendly interactions, and the ability to separate the issue from the emotions. Very, very useful. Thank you for that. Okay, Ambika had to leave. It was great seeing her. Anyone else? Yeah, you listed quite a few qualities. So anything else? Another quality that you express, how you express it, and the impact. Maybe we could hear from Gabrielle or Heba.
Yes. Hard work.
Hello.
Yeah, because you should be an example and you should do it with passion. This is, for me, it's very, very important. If you're the leader and you show with passion that you're working very hard, you know, you should work even more than your team. And then you will motivate them and they will see you and they will be working without even feeling that they are doing an extra mile in this. And then they will reach at the end the impact of having the result of any work. So it's empowering them and it's letting them feeling more enjoying what they are doing as a team.
Okay, so hard work. And how do you said you should work hard?
With passion, you know, with passion, you cannot do, you're not a robot, you know, it's a source of motivation. You do it. So
fantastic. So hardworking, demonstrating that passion, and then that will also inspire and motivate everyone else to actually be passionate also about the same activity. Absolutely true. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that, Heba. I'm going to go to Gabrielle.
Yeah, it's as you said before, Ed, there is no coincidence at all. And Heba mentioned just passion. And passion maybe brought me sometimes in my life in troubles, because I'm a very emotional person. You always see it in my face when I'm talking. I'm full of fire because I'm very passionate when I express myself. And because it brought me in troubles in my life, I had to go through the troubles. And so I'm very grateful that you mentioned what is this quality, and I found out it's intuition. And intuition is my most important tool to solve problems, because my brain or my ego or whatever I learned or whatever I got trained in my life doesn't help me when I'm facing a new problem I never had before, and I have to go through it in that moment. So if it's a new problem, no matter what you learned in your life in theory, you're just helpless. But my intuition and my very strong belief in God and in good, and that I believe that I'm a God's child and I'm an innocent child, not what church or other religions told us that or as women, we're loaded with some guilt because we took an apple or whatever. I learned to leave that away and learned that I'm a child of God and I deserve good. And so because of this strongly believe in God and in love and in good and being passionate, my intuition brought me through things. And how do I notice, or what is the impact, or how do I see it that other people, that reflecting me, is that sometimes it's an admiration, and sometimes it's a perverted admiration that people are jealous, but it's also a confirmation. So, yeah.
Wow, powerful. So you're talking about intuition, and you've also linked intuition to identity, that because you see yourself as someone who's a child, an innocent child of the Supreme, of God, then that also helps you to access that inspiration as well, at that intuition as well. Very, very interesting. Thank you very much for sharing that. So
yeah.
The homework we want to give you, going back to this particular slide, which I'm going to share in a moment, is the following. I'm going to ask you, as your homework, to tune into the questions 3 and 4. We ask you to think about members of your team, and we ask you to think about how their qualities are when they're at their best. And one of the things that you shared earlier was about, I think one of you made a comment about supporting others. I want you to ask your team members, how can you support them to be at their best? Okay, that's the homework. The homework is between now and the next session. Have the communications, whether it's one-to-ones, however you want to do it. When your team are at their best, you've listed their quality, you've identified what it's like when they're at their best. Now, we want you to convey that to them, right? So there's 2 aspects to this, actually. Because there's a saying that leaders, one of the qualities of a leader is that they help a person to be better than the person thinks that they can be. Okay? So there was a story about, it was 2 ladies, they were speaking, and one of them had got married, and she said that, when I was with Chris, I feel like he's the most wonderful person in the world. That's what she said. And her friend said, I'm a bit confused because you married John, right? So you said that when you were with Chris, you felt like he was the most wonderful person in the world. Why would you marry John then instead of Chris? And she said the difference was that when I'm with John, he makes me feel like I'm the most wonderful person in the world. And I thought it was a very, very powerful statement, right? So the homework is, you already have a list of your team members' qualities when they're at their best, whoever it is, one person, a few people. I'd like you to convey that to them, that I know that at your best, you're like this, you're like this, you're like this, you're like this. Okay, so share that, what you've perceived, what you've understood, and then ask them, how can I support you to be at your best? Okay, that's what I'm going to ask you to do as a homework, and then let's see what they say. Let's see what kind of responses that you gain from that particular activity. Yes, Paul.
So I actually ran last week's exercise with them in terms of goals and opportunities. And I was going to flip it around a little bit and ask them to tell me what they thought their best qualities were.
That's even better. Yeah. And
then share and then ask how I can help. Would that be all right?
Absolutely. We're all working on this together. It's a 2-way conversation. I think that's better, if I'm honest with you. Now you sparked something. What you could try also is to ask them what they think your qualities are when you're at your best.
Yeah, I was going to.
That could be quite good. Because you see, there's a term for this. It's called appreciative inquiry. It's mutually inspiring and motivating. People think it's just one way. People think that the leader supports the team. That's wrong. It's wrong. And Bhishmadev talks about that. He says the king should not do anything alone. He should have assistance. The leader gets motivation from the team, and the team gets motivation from the leader, and they support each other. So think about how you feel if your team come back to you and say, Paul, I think you're a great manager. Paul, at your best, I feel you are caring, detail-oriented, great strategist, innovative. let me just throw that out to you, Paul. If you get that feedback positively from your team, how does it make you feel?
Pretty good.
Absolutely. So there's a mutual energizing or motivating effect. So yes, you guys can take this in whichever direction. I've given you some ideas, but I love your idea, Paul. So don't feel limited to whatever I said. You know your teams, you know how to apply it. But some variation of what we discussed, and you may want to ask them, when I'm at my best, what are the qualities that I display when I'm at my best? And what do you think helps me to be at my best? That's also interesting, because this is all about self-awareness. We should never think that we know everything about ourselves. We're constantly learning. I was speaking to Rick during the break, and there's something that I said I was going to do, and then I hadn't got around to it. To be honest with you, it kind of fell off the radar. And then Rick was like, "Come on, you gotta get it done." And but I appreciate like anything, because to be honest, knowing that that's happening, because I've got a bit of a competitive mind as well. It's like, no way, I'm gonna get it done. I can't just for my own sense of identity have a second conversation where I'm behind on that. You see the point? And that's good. We want to use whatever we can leverage to make us successful. So I'm really excited about you doing this activity, and we'll see you next week. We're going to be on for Thursday, I believe, right?
Yeah, just to announce, because Ed is giving some training on Friday, we were going to do Thursday at the 6 a.m. slot. So next week it'll be Thursday. I'll put an announcement in the group. The other point I was appreciating about the way Paul had flipped the exercise is that it allows you to do some comparison about, what perception of what you think is reality and what in fact is. So I thought that was a really, just adding that piece, because we have our thoughts. It's good to hear from what in fact, people are perceiving. So I like that for both of reasons. One, in regards to the other people that we're trying to support, but then also for ourselves.
Excellent. Okay, so thank you very much for your time. We look forward to seeing you all next week.